Today's guest is going to be a lot of fun because chances are you've seen him, may not even have known it, but he's on a show you probably like.
Small little bit parts everywhere, but a lot of shows. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. CSI in New York, NCIS, one of our favorite shows.
Workaholics.
The classic that he wrote, American Diaper.
As, what is it, Bradley Pooper?
Yeah. He's done Hawaii Five-0. He's done probably about 50 different shows as a guest on those. And we're talking about, his name is Brian Guest. So literally he's a guest on just about every show you can imagine.
It's like you already said his name.
Did I?
Like, yeah.
I don't think I did.
I could have sworn you said his name.
And that was such a great tie-in at the end too, Brian Guest being a guest on the show. And it just popped in my head. I didn't plan that out. It was that impressive.
Ad-libbed it all.
That's right, as you can tell. So we will have Brian Guest as our guest coming up on My Big Break Almost right after this. Is this the first thing you have to do today from waking up is be stuck talking to us?
I have gotten my two kids off to school already. And my roof is leaking on my house, so we're trying to figure out how to put a roof on our house at the same time. This is not the first thing I've had to do today.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Yeah. Wow, so compared to the roof, is this the second worst thing you've had to do today?
No, this is absolute joy.
Oh, it's so sweet of you to say.
We are on with Brian Guest, who has been in, it's amazing how much you've been in. I don't know if you're tired yet, but you've been in a lot of stuff, my friend.
I've been in a few things, yeah.
A few. I was like going on a list of just certain things. I was like, holy cow, you've been on so much.
So how does a guy from Delaware make it in Hollywood like you did? How does that happen?
I feel like I'm still making it in Hollywood. I don't know if there's that point you were like, oh, I've arrived. I'm here. It's me.
Well, you're living there, right?
Yeah.
I'm living here. Yes, I'm living here. So I played baseball at the University of Delaware, and I got injured, I think, my junior season, and I needed some extra credits to fill some time. And so I was like, oh, I'll take this acting class, see what this is about. You know, it's like you do a lot of yoga. Everyone does sort of like, you turn out the lights and you imagine stuff, and it's like a group circle of people getting back rubs. It's like the best class ever. And so I was like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so from then my teacher was like, hey, like, you enjoy this a lot. I'm like, yes, this is a good time. So he's like, I think you should pursue it more. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And so I started to go up to New York a little bit for auditions. And then I ended up taking a class at UCLA over the summer 1 year. And that was 2001, I believe. And then I left that class and flew back home to Delaware, and I packed my car and pretty much drove out to Hollywood.
Wow. So you just kind of knew it from there that you just wanted to pursue strongly, by
I had 6 credits left at school, which I have yet to finish, and my mom's still asking me about when I'm going to finish those credits.
You got time.
So I got some time.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I lived in my car for a little bit of time when I moved to Hollywood with all of my stuff packed in my tiny little Honda. It was a very interesting, exciting time.
I'm sure. What, you didn't crash at a friend's couch? Because that's kind of a norm too, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really know a whole lot of people. I did know a couple people. I knew this one actor guy that I met at that UCLA program. And then there's this fantastic actor named Patrick Kerr who let me crash at his house for a little bit. And I was sort of embarrassed to tell people that I was living in my car. Like I didn't want to be a nuisance and say like, oh, like I'm living in my car. Can I stay at your place a little extra time? I sort of lied and just said, oh, I've got like friends I'm staying with or whatever. But interestingly enough, I would park my car at this place called the Sportsman's Lodge on Coldwater Canyon and Ventura, if any people are familiar with this area. And I would park my car and stay there in my car at night because like the lighting in the parking lot was optimal enough where I could sleep a little bit and also, bright enough to keep people from bothering me. I felt safe there. And there was a gym down the street, which I collected these free passes to, a Gold's Gym where I could shower and like, get ready for my day of like, oh, how am I going to book a job today? And so that's how I started.
Well, that's the spirit. Crazy. At least you had a positive attitude towards it all.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think like I just saw it as an adventure. I didn't see it as like this like downtrodden, down on my luck thing. I was like, for some reason, I felt like this is how people made it in Hollywood. It's like you hear these stories of people like, oh, they had it's like rags to riches sort of story, and I was like, oh, well, this might be my story. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's what I visualize because there's a lot of people, that have had that rags to riches.
Right.
So you're on the right path.
Yeah.
You were.
I picture you in a parking lot and the car next to you is like Matt Damon, and the one down the thing is like Johnny Depp, and they're just all living in their cars.
It's so funny. Like, yeah, exactly. Oddly enough, I took my daughter ice skating yesterday in Santa Monica. They have this like ice skating rink, and it's like 80 degrees in Santa Monica, and they've have an ice rink outside.
Of course.
But it's just skating around with Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck was there with I don't know who he was with. He was just there watching ice skaters. Apparently, he likes ice skaters.
Wow.
That's cool. And were you just like pointing out to your daughter?
So did he come up to them and just say, "Hey, Affleck," and you just start talking to him?
Affleck. Nope. Celebrities. They're just like us.
That's right.
That's true. You know what's so funny is I bet you this morning on some other show not near as good, Ben Affleck's on there saying, you know what? I saw Brian Guest at the ice skating rink yesterday. I
saw Brian Guest flopping around on the ice like a dead fish trying to ice skate yesterday. What a sight. What a sight.
I still don't know if he got up, but he's still may be there. So going from your car to trying to book an appointment and get a job, what were some of those early days like?
Oh, man. I mean, so I booked this job on a soap, which I hope everyone remembers, called Passions.
I remember it. It was on for quite a while.
It was on for a while. It was very supernatural-esque. Had like witches and warlocks and just all sorts of cast of characters. Very, very funny show. Which was meant to be serious. It was a soap opera. Right. So I actually had booked that job living out of my car. And so it was shortly after 9/11. When I had moved across the country, I thought I had a job lined up as like a PA doing, just grunt work at Paramount sort of thing. Literally, I think all the major companies, at that time would just like put a freeze on all their hirings. And so when I moved out to LA, I'd called my contact Joe at Paramount. And he's like, "Hey man, like we're sorry, that position we're not hiring anymore."
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
He sounds like a loser already.
Yeah. I still remember his name. That's how much it means to me. I had gotten an audition opportunity at CBS Radford for Passions, and I was living out of my car. And so when I pulled up to the gate for my audition, I had all my stuff in my car. And after 9/11, security was also very tight at places. So like two security guards like looked at my car and were like, "Oh, And so they went through all of my stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they put mirrors like under my car, like they swept the underneath of my car to make sure there wasn't any like devices under there. And they had bomb sniffing dogs like go through my car.
Wow.
And so the line for getting into this CBS Radford lot was like all around the corner. I remember people like screaming and honking.
All because of you.
all because of my little Passions audition, which I ended up booking, and I got a couple episodes on Passions.
Oh my God! So. There was only one entrance. That's what's kind of crazy to me.
Well, I think there's a few entrances, but for this particular gate, like this is like their main gate or whatever, and so yeah, it was. I felt like, oh, this is my opportunity. I'm taking it.
Suck it, America. This is mine.
Yeah. Passions was really my first gig. I think my first gig on a show.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a good one. So what was it like from having your first gig to, okay, now this is over. Now I have to go out and do this all over again?
all over again, all the time.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, it sort of is like Groundhog's Day. I mean, the life of an actor is a weird life. It's a lot of no. It's a lot of like, you go for periods of time sometimes, like, or I have in my life, in my career, of either booking a lot of jobs back to back to back, and you get into like this little hot streak or a groove, and then you may not work for, 6 months to a year sometimes. And that's a weird sort of feeling of like, of not knowing, when you're going to work again is an odd feeling. I think for my life is like, I've tried to be steady in that sort of roller coaster of work, of keeping like a sort of like even keel mind, or this is what I try to do.
How many jobs can you have at once? Like, could you actually do, a pop in at a TV show and then that very next week be at another one and just kind of alternate? Because I'm just kind of curious on how many jobs you could have at once. That way you have that security of still, being able to work.
Yeah, I've worked a little bit recently, which is great. I worked on a new platform called Quibi, and they're doing a show called a remake of The Fugitive.
Oh.
And so I worked on that maybe a month or two ago. And then I just worked again on another show called Magnum PI down in Hawaii. So,
nice.
Those things will probably air around the same time, which will be nice. It's interesting. Like, I remember I worked on a TV show called Narcos. On this particular episode was Newman from Seinfeld.
Seinfeld. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Fantastic gentleman. And he was talking to me about sort of like his career and his life, and I thought it was just so interesting, like how, the ups and downs he's had in his career. And he was telling me this story about like, there was a time when he couldn't walk out the door and not get a job. He was working on 3 TV shows at the same time as a series regular, which like is unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beast.
He was a beast, and then he goes years and years and years without, sort of, he can't get arrested in Hollywood if he tried. It's all perspective, and it's just trying to weather the storm of when you're not working and trying to enjoy your life, I feel like.
When you're on these shows, because again, the shows that you've been on, it's just amazing that, Hawaii Five-0, CSI, Cold Case, NCIS, Rush Hour, all these shows that people just watch regularly. What's it like whenever you go on as a guest spot and they've been on this cast family for years, and all of a sudden you're like, cousin Brian coming for one show? What's it like trying to fit in?
Yeah, that's a real interesting question, isn't it?
Is there an answer?
Every show is different. I think when I did Cold Case, it was later in their run, maybe like season 9 or something like that. I felt like they were ready. They were ready to be done. Everyone was very sweet. Everyone was very sweet on set, but I got the impression that they were ready for Cold Case to be over. And by the way, that show is a very interesting show because they not only had to cast like the current time period actors, they had flashbacks where they had to cast those exact matches of people from like 20 years before.
Oh wow.
So that's cool.
That was such an interesting show because my character that I played on that was a version of himself 20 years before. So I was playing, like the current actor's version of himself in 1969, I think.
Oh, that cool.
It is.
Yeah, so that was a cool show. I just did Magnum PI, and the 2 leads of that show, Jay Hernandez and Perdita Weeks, were awesome. They're great. They're so sweet, and they have those actors like they're doing a lot of work. They're doing hiking up mountains, jumping off cliffs, swimming in the ocean, like for hours and hours. Like they're like 12 to 15-hour days of hiking through the jungle and just crazy, insane stuff. And I thought they were pros. So sweet and so funny and very charming. Very charming people. It's interesting when you sort of get put on a show as a guest actor, because I do think that a lot of times they have like a tightly wound sort of family unit, and it is like the cousin, You do feel like the cousin coming
Cousin
on.
Eddie.
Cousin Eddie coming on and sitting at the little table at Thanksgiving. I'm okay with that. It's fine. Part of my
That's
job.
good. It always reminds me of Brady Bunch when they had the family and all of a sudden they had their little cousin come over for an episode or two. And everyone's like, why do we have the cousin here? Everything else is fine. Why is the cousin here? And then he turned out well.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Again, you've been on so many different shows and sets. Are there any kind of stories that you're like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened on this show?
See, I think that, because it shows that you were on The Oath and Tiffany Haddish.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that she would be a riot, but I just don't think I could hold it together the whole time.
Yeah, it's a dark comedy about sort of where we're living in our political sphere, our political bubbles right now. I believe it takes place during Thanksgiving. It's a very satirical look of sort of where we're at in America right now. I mean, Tiffany and Ike Barinholtz are very, very funny people. So on set it was a lot of jokes, a lot of hanging out, a lot of trying to keep a straight face during takes and stuff like that.
I feel like Jimmy Fallon, on SNL or something. You just can't hold it together. That's in my vision.
It's a little bit like that. But Ike also directed that movie, so he was a little more focused than the rest of us. So
speaking of focus, I just picture the Workaholics guys is like, guys, come on, we got to get at least one take down. I just picture them and their characters not really working hard for Workaholics.
What's his name? Levine?
Yeah.
So Adam Devine.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. That's what I'm here for, guys.
Somebody's got to keep us in line. Our fact checker, Brian Guest.
Right?
Those guys, it's so funny they can turn it on and off. They're just professionals. And the good thing about that set was I remember going on that show and it's a little intimidating. That's the thing about they're a tightly wound sort of unit. Those guys have been together for not just the Workaholics, but for years and years and years before that of working together they had a sketch show, I believe it's called The Mailroom. And so, they're a little cohesive unit. So when you come onto a show like that, it's like, oh, what is this experience going to be like? And I showed up and I remember the director, Kyle Newacek, and Adam being like, hey man, your audition's super funny. Just do whatever you want. like that sort of attitude. And, when someone approaches you like that, it really takes the edge off and it makes you feel pretty comfortable. And it was that show is also very heightened and very ridiculous. And so the premise of that particular show was Alex Bornstein's character was having a baby and she wanted to deliver it in like a home birth or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have the pool ready. So they wanted to deliver it at the gym where I was working at. So, she wanted to deliver the baby in like a hot tub or a pool or something like that. And as they're trying to have this baby, I'm trying to sell them a membership to become members. So,
I love that.
I know, now to see that.
It's pretty ridiculous stuff.
So I bet that was fun.
A lot of laughing on that show. Yeah, it was a blast. So much fun.
That is so cool. So
what about this one?
Oh my gosh, yeah. We found courtesy of, IMDb, which is, it's all 100% true. But,
sure, yeah.
The internet.
Yeah, so Lindy popped this one. She goes, what about...
American Diaper? Is that, that was in 2015.
And you played Bradley Pooper? Yeah. I love this. I got to hear this.
So the things that come back. I just figured. I try to write and shoot little funny videos every once in a while. I came up with this sketch idea, which is ridiculous, to do a parody of American Sniper and called American Diaper about this this grizzled dad who, is trying to change his child's diaper essentially. And, but it was interesting because I shot this little sketch video, which I'm sure you can find on YouTube or the internet somewhere.
Oh, we will.
We will. And it got a little bit of press. Like people liked it and thought it was funny, and I think like someone on Fox like wrote up like a little like, you know, review about it, and it sort of took off a little bit. So yeah, it's fun. I like doing stuff like that. You know, when I'm not like shooting something on set or whatever, like I think you have to try and stay active and just be creative and keep doing your work in the world whenever you can.
Which it is an art to changing a diaper. So it's been a long time for me, but yeah, I can definitely, for men, I'm sure.
Probably more of an art to try to write a show about changing a diaper and then acting in it. Have a little stunt baby, you know.
Yeah, so we had a little hell baby. Mm-hmm.
So when you go to Hawaii for Hawaii 5-0 or Magnum PI, we always picture, okay, they're going to wine and dine you as first class, put you up in this hotel, and just like, we're so glad to have you. Or is it like, hey, book your ticket and we'll see you when you get here?
You know, it's like they have a suit. They instantly, like a genie pops out of a bottle and shows up at your house and gives you like a facial, a massage, and he drives you around in a black limousine and throws glitter in the air.
Wife, I'd be like, I'm partaking.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, it's so crazy because they fly you down. You stay in a nice hotel, which is great. But here's the other part: is you wake up at 4 a.m. and you're on set at 5, and then like for this particular episode, it was manual labor from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. of nonstop running, hiking, hanging off cliffs, like that stuff, which sounds awesome, and it is awesome. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, you're done and you fall asleep because you're so beat and banged up a little bit, but banged up in the best way. So it's a little bit of both, I suppose.
Well, yeah, you're getting your cardio for the day.
There you go.
Yeah, I definitely got my steps in. I got my 10,000. I got my 20,000.
This Fitbit's just working overtime.
I know. Do they have one?
But you know, my wife had to. You know, she had to, as I was gone playing pretend in Hawaii, take care of my the 2 dogs, the 2 kids, and try to figure out how we're gonna put a roof on our house. So yeah, it was not great.
It wasn't paradise at home.
I'm sure.
Apparently.
Yeah, there's probably some resentment could possibly build up from that. I'm sure.
You know, I took 1 or 2 pictures of me with a Mai Tai and sent it back and said,
"Wish you were here."
Yeah, wish you were here, and exactly.
That's so funny. I love that.
Asshole.
Yeah, I would have gotten that text real fast. All the different shows that you've been on, are there any that you came so close to that you thought was going to be some, your big break almost that just didn't quite pan out?
Yeah, I guess there's been a few of them, really. There's been a lot of close calls, whatever that means. A lot of like, you're up for a big job. I was very excited when I did Southland on, I think it was TNT. The cop show. It was a show about LAPD officers, and so I came on the season finale of season 4 as like the new rookie cop, and I was under the impression that I would be a recurring character on that show as like the new rookie, and they weren't sure if they were coming back for season 5, and it was like sort of an extended amount of time between season 4 and season 5. And then when season 5 started, they called him like, "Yeah, we're not going forward with Brian on the show."
Right.
And so there's been several things like that where it's just been like, "Oh, come on."
That would be a downer.
Let's do this.
Yeah, that is. So I was always curious, and I never want to get into what someone specifically makes, but you're the perfect guy to ask this because you've been a guest on so many different shows. When we're watching a show, I've always wondered, okay, if that person on there that just got arrested for murder and they're grilling for this one episode, and I know they probably won't be on again, are they going to have to go back to, waiting tables tomorrow to pay the bills? Or is that one spot going to tide them over for like 6 months to the next gig?
Well, now you might get a
yeah, that's right.
They're going back to wait tables. Like,
okay.
For sure. I mean, so actors have, agents and managers, and sometimes like a publicist or a lawyer or something like that. So when an actor books a job, they're giving away more than 50% of their gross to that.
Oh my goodness.
And then you have to figure taxes on top of that. Like when I book a job, you know, I'm always grateful, but I know it's going to be for like probably about 30% of what that number is, 35, 40%, or, you know, somewhere in that ballpark of whatever that number is. So yeah, it's, I think a ton of actors, it's just weird where we're at right now as far as like the acting industry. Like there, you know, you always hear this term of like working actors, or like, you know, I think of working actors as like blue collar sort of like actors, where they're like hustling and grinding and trying to like book a guest star here, or like, you know, a recurring thing here. The disparity, I think between like the 1% stars, like actors, and the rest of like the acting community is a pretty big difference. I think going forward, like it's really tough to be a working actor of just relying on that to be your sole income is very difficult for sure.
Well, I'm just curious if you did do like the, you know, let's just say waiting tables thing, you know, in between. Mm-hmm. It's not like jury duty. You can't just say, you know, I have to go to this. Can you just, you know, take me off the books until I come back? How is that even working with your other job?
So you're saying when you book a job and like you have to like schedule out, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, it's just as far as like if you know, got a part in a role and you got to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know,
hopefully the other place. Yeah, hopefully the place that you're working at is pretty cool, you know? Like,
well, I guess if it's LA, you know, I mean, if it's California, I'm sure they're like, all right.
They're used to it.
Yeah, so I think in Los Angeles or Hollywood, a lot of people working in the restaurant business for sure, you know, are actors. I bartended for a long time. You know, I bartended for a very long time at like clubs in Hollywood and restaurants and whatnot. So it was always a tricky thing when you booked a job trying to like cover shifts. Yeah.
Dude, can you do me a favor?
The thing is, like, yeah, for sure. But like the other bartenders and the other waiters are also actors, so they want to cover those shifts when they can because they know it's going to come back around. So I think like there's like that community of actors that work in restaurants that are always trying to help each other out, for sure.
I can see that though.
That's cool.
Yeah, you're all trying to grow together.
Yeah.
Now, because you've been on so many shows, I keep saying this, but again, you've just been on a lot, which I think is so impressive. Do you get recognized a lot, or do you just get those second looks like, okay, did I go to school with that guy, or did he mug me? I've seen him before.
You know, it's pretty funny. I have a couple of things to say on that. Like everyone sort of thinks like they like like they've either seen me on something, or they recognize me, or they think I'm a friend from college, which is very sweet. Yeah, so that happens sometimes. And then I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was walking down this street in Venice called Abbot-Kinney Boulevard, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I walked out of this restaurant, Jolena, which is my favorite restaurant. Very, very tasty restaurant. So
they're probably going to give you a free meal for this shout out now.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, Jolena, Abbot-Kinney Boulevard, Venice, open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I walked out with my girlfriend, and we started walking down the street, and then this cameraman gets his camera in my face, and he's like, he starts asking me questions about, this is when Arnold Schwarzenegger had an affair with his, I guess, maid or nanny or something like that. So like, what do you think about Arnold Schwarzenegger? And I was like, who are you? What is happening? And they just kept on asking me questions about this thing. And I was like, you don't know who I am. You think I'm someone else.
Like his son?
For whatever reason, like you're asking me these questions. I was like, who are you? I was like, a friend of mine definitely is put you up to this. Like, it's like, I work for TMZ. And I was like, no, you don't. He's like, yeah, I work for TMZ. I was like, who do you think I am? And he's like, you're that beer guy. You're the beer commercial guy. And at the time, I had this beer commercial that was like running nonstop. And like, sure enough, like I was at that time like the beer guy. I was like, it must be a slow day where you guys are trying to get questions from the beer guy. I've definitely, I've bumped into people before. Not to bring up the Affleck family again, but here's a Casey Affleck story. Affleck
I'm a huge Casey fan, so I can't wait to hear this.
I was standing in line to watch this play at the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles, and I was standing around talking to a group of people, and then in back of me was this guy that I literally bumped into, and I turned around, and I thought it was my buddy Brandon who's an actor friend of mine, and I hugged him. And he's like, "Hey, man." I was like, "Oh, wait a second." And it turned out to be Casey Affleck. I was like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I thought you were my friend Brandon, and you're not. You're Casey Affleck." So it was very nice about me giving him an awkward hug, which is
that is great. So how long did it take till that restraining order expired?
Yeah, it's still current. I've still got it on the books.
That's something to be proud of. Maybe he'd autograph that for you.
Right?
So what are you working on that you can share that you're excited about other than trying to get your roof repaired?
So Magnum will come out in probably February. The Fugitive will come out in, I believe, April. So those two things are fun to look forward to. I've got some stuff cooking, so hopefully those things go through. And I've been writing a bunch. I wrote a show that I put up at this theater called Upright Citizens Brigade called Brian Guest is a Bad Dad. Which was a very fun show.
Yeah.
Yep. Get my name out there. I'm trying to turn that into like a half-hour TV show. So I've been pitching that to producers around town, and then I'm working on another show that I've been trying to get off the ground here for a little bit. So hopefully one of those things land, and you just keep on keeping on.
That's great though. Yeah, fight the good fight every day. One last question I have for.
There's two.
Sure.
Okay.
Right. Like, what was his? Or did you already ask? I thought you didn't.
Yeah, well, you were here on the show with me. She was asking about my big break almost, which is.
I thought that maybe because I was just like, well, he hasn't talked about that.
But he talked about Southland, that he almost got that. Were there any others that we kind of glossed over that we should have dove into? You still have hurt feelings towards that? Maybe we need to have some therapy.
the soul crushing thing that.
Yes.
That's right.
I mean. I don't know. I don't know if I look at it like that. Like I always just look at as things as experiences and learning experiences of just trying to just keep doing good work and not get my hopes up or have too many expectations about things. I remember, God, this is Brandon Routh did Superman. Whatever Superman that was, I feel like there's been like 10 or 15 Supermans here thrown in the mix. But I remember that was a big deal, like audition to have. And I was a very sort of like green new actor in town at the time, and I auditioned for that Superman. To play that Superman, and I was just so excited to go in to play Superman. Of course, like. I didn't have very many credits, and I didn't know what I was doing as an actor.
Well,
and I got my hopes up to be Superman.
Oh gosh,
so,
you're jumping off the roof with a cape, practicing and everything, right?
Oh yeah, the whole thing. I mean, I wore my Superman underoos, I went all out for that.
And you never got a call back? Even after
Shockingly, never got a call back for that one.
Man, that is a bummer, though. I mean, who wouldn't want to be Superman?
Yeah, it must have been a bad signal, on the phone. Yeah. So I'm sure they tried to get a hold of you a bunch.
Well, he was out of his car, so.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you weren't living out of your car. The reception of the internet and the Honda.
We couldn't find your address.
It kept moving. Speaking of phones, all right, last question, a segment we have called Name Drop. Who is the most famous contact you have in your telephone?
Oh my God!
With number.
The most famous. And their telephone number, please.
Yeah.
Who's the most famous contact I have in my phone? Oh man. Oh God. That's a weird question.
Yeah. Or one of them. That way you don't hurt anyone's feelings.
The most important contacts that I have on my phone are my family. How about that?
I think that's a good answer.
So sweet. All on speed dial.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, you're sipping Mai Tais in Hawaii.
That's right.
Maybe we should ask, whose contacts, famous contacts are his wives.
Yeah, that's right.
I know, right?
Would she say your name? It's probably the roofer.
She better say my name. She better say, man. By the way, like, I'm like on the totem pole of like our household, like I'm the least important person. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I have a family of women, so I'm at the very bottom, even from our dogs. I get it. Brian, I know you've got so many other things going on, and for you to take time out and to chat with us has been so much fun this morning. We really appreciate you.
Awesome. You guys are great. I really appreciate you having me on. This has been fun.
That was fun. I really liked having Brian on.
It was fun. I'm so glad that we got to talk to him.
He was driving, having to drop his kids off, having to get the roof fixed, and the fact that in LA traffic. So I'm guessing in that 30 minutes we talked to him, he probably moved like 2 blocks.
I never heard any cars honking in the back, though. So that's
true.
good. I don't know. He must have a really good phone, or I don't know, good insulation around his car. I don't know. I didn't even know he was driving, actually.
I wonder if he finally got rid of that Honda.
And his kids were so good. Like, because I never heard any kids either.
Yeah, I think they were in the trunk. I think he just put them in the trunk and called it good. He's a showman. He's got to do for the show. The show must go on.
Maybe they took, he's, helped them grow up in an acting career where it's like, I'm on the phone. You need to act like you're not here.
You need to act right.
Yeah.
But it was
Parenting
fun.
advice from Brian Guest. Maybe that could be his new little clips.
Well, he is a bad dad, according to him.
Yeah,
that's
true.
locking him in a trunk could have really happened. I'm sure DHS
or
was
the
calling.
American diaper Bradley Pooper.
Oh, gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a fun guy to talk to. Though.
I know, right?
Really laid back.
Which that truly is a clip, though. He's done, what is it, a short.
It really is.
They call it a short, and it's called American Diaper, and he is Bradley Pooper. So we haven't seen it. He said it could still be out on YouTube.
Yeah,
so
we're going to have to check that out.
We're checking it out.
That is so funny. I can't wait to see the new stuff he's in, though, because it's just more fun to get to see a character and know the personality behind it. Like, okay, we talked to that guy, and, here's some of the funny things he did. Yeah. Every time I see him now, I'm going to picture him hugging Casey Affleck.
That'd be cool, though. I'd probably play that off, too.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were like my friend from college. I'm so sorry. Yes.
That's like when you walk by, a celebrity, you just walking by, and you get your phone ready, it's like, and just keep walking.
I know. Well, that's what I would ask. I was like, well, while we're here.
That's right.
I just, take a picture.
We're in line.
Yeah. I'll post it as like, thought it was my friend.
Yeah. But anyway.
He was really awesome, though. He was a really nice guest, really knowledgeable about, the world, their world.
Yeah.
The acting world. And that was really cool that, the blue collar thing. I had no clue.
Yeah. I just picture them all as celebrities. So now every time I see a guest on Bones or something and they committed the murder, I know the next day they could be serving me coffee.
We should live in California.
That's right. $8 lattes, here we come.
8? That's a bargain.
Join us next week. We will have an all-new episode. No reruns here with an all-new guest.